The ancient Romans almost never carried the kind of stubborn, visceral belly fat we consider common today. They stayed lean and physically capable well into middle age and beyond, and they did it without ever stepping into a gym or counting a single calorie. If you're curious about why the ancient Romans stayed lean, energetic, and healthy deep into old age, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button so you don't miss these deep dives. For the average Roman, the kind of metabolic dysfunction that leads to that dangerous internal fat was extraordinarily rare. Their world simply wasn't built for it. To understand why, you have to step into the rhythm of their daily life, a rhythm dictated not by convenience, but by necessity, social custom, and the limits of their technology. Their leanness wasn't a goal. It was a natural byproduct of existing within that world. A Roman's day began early, almost always with the sun. There was no snooze button, no electric light to blur the lines between day and night. Their circadian rhythms were locked to the solar cycle. Breakfast was a swift, simple affair, often just a piece of bread dipped in wine or water, maybe some olives or cheese. Then they moved, for the vast majority, whether a craftsman, a merchant, a soldier, or even a senator, the day involved miles of walking. Rome was a walking city. Errands, business, social calls, all of it happened on foot. There were litters for the very wealthy, but they were the exception. For the rest, walking was the default, a constant, low-grade movement that threaded through the entire day. Work itself was physical. Even a scribe or a shopkeeper would be lifting, carrying, and standing far more than sitting. Manual labor was the norm, not the exception. This wasn't exercise. It was just life. Their muscles were in a near-constant state of gentle use, their hearts and lungs regularly engaged without ever being pushed to a stressful extreme. When it came to food, their diet was a masterpiece of simplicity and seasonality. The core of every meal was what we'd call the Mediterranean trifecta: grains, vegetables, and olive oil. Wheat, in the form of bread or porridge, was the staple. Vegetables like cabbage, onions, lentils, beans, and leafy greens were daily fare, often dressed with that ubiquitous, high-quality olive oil. Fruit like figs, grapes, and apples were common desserts. Meat was a luxury, consumed in small quantities, often as a flavoring in stews or as a part of religious sacrifices. Fish and eggs were more frequent protein sources, and sugar, as we know it, didn't exist. Honey was the only sweetener, used sparingly. Theirs was a diet high in fiber, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates, and astonishingly low in refined sugars and processed foods. They ate what was local, fresh, and in season because they had no other choice. Even their wine, which they drank daily, was typically watered down, making it a modest source of antioxidants rather than a significant caloric load. The social structure of their day also enforced natural breaks and recovery. The afternoon siesta, or meridiertio, was a common practice, a pause during the hottest part of the day. And then there were the baths. Visiting the public baths wasn't just about getting clean, it was a daily ritual of recovery. They would move through the series of rooms: the warm tepidarium, the hot caldarium, and finally the cold frigidarium. This practice of contrast bathing, of deliberately applying heat and then cold, acted as a powerful anti-inflammatory and circulatory boost. It soothed aching muscles from the day's labor, reduced systemic stress, and promoted a deep, restorative sleep later on. Their sleep, again dictated by darkness, was typically longer and more aligned with natural light cycles than our own. So what was happening inside a Roman body as a result of this unremarkable daily grind? The effects were profound and systemic. First, the constant, all-day movement kept their insulin sensitivity exceptionally high. Insulin is the hormone that tells your cells to take in glucose from your bloodstream. When you sit for long periods and then eat large, sugary meals, your cells can become resistant to that signal, so your body pumps out more and more insulin. Excess insulin is a direct instruction to store fat, particularly visceral fat around your organs. The Romans' lifestyle prevented that resistance from ever taking hold. Their muscles were always slightly hungry for fuel, ready to efficiently take in glucose, which kept their blood sugar levels stable and their insulin levels low. This meant their bodies simply had no biochemical reason to store excess belly fat. Their diet directly protected their liver. Without a flood of fructose from sugary drinks and processed foods, the liver wasn't forced to work overtime, converting sugar into fat, a process that leads to fatty liver disease. Instead, the liver efficiently managed a steady stream of complex carbs, fiber, and healthy fats. The high fiber intake from all those vegetables and whole grains fed a healthy gut microbiome, which further reduced systemic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is now understood to be a root cause of nearly every modern lifestyle disease, from heart trouble to cognitive decline. The Roman lifestyle, their food, their movement, their recovery rituals, kept that inflammatory fire smoldering low. This created a virtuous cycle. Stable blood sugar meant no energy crashes, so they maintained steady stamina throughout the day. Efficient circulation and low inflammation supported heart health and kept arteries clear. Even their hormonal balance, including testosterone and other key hormones, was supported by this pattern of adequate movement, quality sleep, and minimal metabolic stress. This is why historical accounts often describe elderly Romans as remaining active, sharp, and engaged in public life and even physical pursuits. Their bodies weren't breaking down from the inside out from a lifetime of metabolic chaos. They were resilient because their daily habits were, by accident of history, perfectly aligned with how the human body evolved to function. They were lean, not because they fought their biology, but because their world effortlessly worked with it. Next, we're going to explore the Roman secret to lifelong strength and joint health, how their approach to building infrastructure built incredibly resilient bodies. You won't want to miss that one.